All right, you guys, it's 7:05, so we're gonna go starting. We're gonna wait a little bit longer, pero I think last class no llegamos a presentarnos contigo, Oscar, así que aprovechemos, tal vez mientras esperamos un ratito más, ah, para presentarnos. Bueno, hi guys, primero a los dos, hi Whitney and Oscar.
Hi, teacher.
Hi.
I am Oscar. I am here.
Hi, go ahead and introduce yourself, please, Oscar.
Oh, okay. I am Oscar Sebastián Gutierrez. I am sociologist. Actually, I am from Sucre, but actually I am living in La Paz.
Mhm.
I came here because I wanted to finish a master. I finished two. I'm very happy of that. Well, I need this exam, this TOEFL exam, because for one master I have finished. I need it for the completion. Or how can I say?
Completion.
Conclusion, exactly, for the conclusion.
All right.
Only that, teacher.
Dale, nice to meet you, Oscar. And cool major. Sociology is really cool. All right. Ahora que estamos más personas, vayamos prendiendo nuestras cámaras, guys, so we can see each other. Además que Dia is speaking, so it's better to see each other to speak. So vayan prendiendo por favor sus cámaras. Y bueno, en lo que van prendiendo, last time, well, on Wednesday, we saw the first type of integrated task for speaking, right? Integrated ya es cuando tiene material de base. It has a text or it has a audio you have to listen to. Today, we're going to continue with this type of task. It's also integrated speaking. It has a text you have to read, and it has a conversation as well. But in this case, it's going to be a little bit more formal. No va a ser tan, la otra vez, los otros que hemos visto eran un poco más casuales. Eran conversaciones, eran charlas que podrías tener tú con un compañero de la universidad, ¿no? O maybe con un compañero de trabajo o algo en tu día a día. These, the text, the audio, and therefore the question is a little more academic. It's a little more formal. So we have to pay attention to that. No como si estuvieran escuchando una clase de universidad. No sé qué les han dicho exactamente sus clases teóricas, pero more or less, the way the information works in these structures es que las dos informaciones se complementan, ¿no? They're about the same topic, el mismo tema, but they have different sides, como que pueden explicar dos temas diferentes o dar dos ejemplos diferentes de un tema, pero la información se complementa, ¿no? Sobre un mismo tema. So, eso, and the topics are varied, ¿no? Puede ser ciencias exactas, puede ser algo más psicología, historia. So we're going to go ahead and start the practice for those. Regarding time, we have the same amount of time, more or less, to prepare the answer and to respond. Igual es 30 segundos para preparar y 60 minutos para dar tu respuesta. So, más o menos vayan midiendo su tiempo igual que la otra vez. Before we start with the first one, are there any questions? ¿Hay algo que tengan dudas? Tal vez ya han visto, usualmente les hacen ver un ejercicio de estos también en su clase teórica. So maybe before we start, there's some questions you have, algo que les haya parecido difícil. No. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start. Same thing as last time, les voy a poner su cronómetro. And the text is also very short. we only have 45 seconds to read, but it's also super short, like it's a paragraph. So let me read a passage from a history textbook. You will have 45 seconds to read the passage, and sus 45 segundos. ¿Me confirman, porfa, que todos vean la pantalla? You guys can see it, right? All right. Okay, ahora sí. Your 45 seconds to read start now. All right, our 45 seconds are up. Are there any questions? Any vocabulary that's new? ¿Alguna idea que no haya quedado clara? Everything clear with the text, right? Yeah, entonces seguimos. With the conversation. People tend to find these audios a little bit more difficult porque es lenguaje un poco más académico, un poco más pesado. But the same advice goes for this, you know, for whenever you have to listen to a conversation, listen to where they put emphasis on words, listen to the tone of their voices, y con eso tienes un poco para tomar sus apuntes. Por si acaso, el texto, you can go back and read it. Like it's gonna, they let you look at it. So el texto van a poder volver y leer en cualquier momento. But the conversation or the lecture, you're only going to hear once. So, como siempre, tengan su papelito listo para tomar apuntes. All right. Everyone ready with a paper or something to take notes? All right, so we're going to listen to the lecture.
Now listen to part of a lecture from a class on ancient history.
Climate change hasn't always been seen as such a major factor on how we've progressed, how culture has developed. But more and more, we're finding that it does play a major role. Let's take the example of Egypt. The country today is harshly divided between the Sahara Desert, where basically nothing grows, and the area around the Nile River Valley, which is still one of the most fertile places on the whole planet. But the thing is, we're now discovering that the landscape of Egypt was not always divided in that way. Instead, until the 4th millennium BCE, the desert of Egypt was actually a rich, prosperous area of fields and farmable meadows. There were societies living away from the Nile, successfully farming or getting by in a place that would later be completely uninhabitable. But then, of course, the climate changed and the Sahara Desert formed. That meant people were forced to move to the Nile Valley to survive, because there were no more fields to cultivate or animals to hunt. So right, you can imagine their culture had to adapt as they moved to a new area, a new climate. But it doesn't stop there. The Nile Valley was already settled. So these newcomers fleeing the desert, they evidently fought the people already living in the valley. And we see that from the construction of these giant defensive walls for the first time in history. So right, people joined together behind these walls and formed cities to protect themselves. This was a large interaction between communities, deeply affecting the local culture. The changing landscape was at the heart of that change.
Explain.
Okay, before we listen to the question, ¿qué tal? el audio. Is there anything that wasn't clear? Any vocabulary, any information? ¿Les ha parecido más difícil, igual, than the conversations? A ver, si todo está claro, so we're going to listen to the question now. Remember that after we listen to the question, tienen 30 segundos para preparar su respuesta y luego I'm going to call on any of you guys. So tengan lista su respuesta. A ver.
Explain how the lecturer's claim.
That change.
Explain how the lecturer's claims give a concrete example of climate change's effect on culture.
Okay, so in this case, igual siempre hay que prestar atención a la pregunta. In this case, they're asking us to explain how the lecturer's claims give a concrete example of climate change effect on climate change's effect on culture. So basically, the first text, el primer texto, era una definición, más o menos, of how climate change affects culture. You know, very general, very, very amplio. But in the lecture, she gave us a specific example of a certain culture, a certain culture, how it developed through history. And can someone tell me what culture it was? ¿Qué cultura era que menciona como ejemplo?
Egipto.
Dime, Josh.
Egipto menciona en la lectura.
Sorry, se te cortó un cacho el inter.
escuchan?
¿Puedes repetir, por favor?
Egipto es de la cultura en la que habla el ejemplo en la lectura.
In the lecture, what example does she give in the lecture?
In the lecture, the professor explained how the climate change affected in Egypt.
So she gives a long extended example of Egypt in general, Egyptian culture, because of the Sahara Desert, because of the Nile, so that todos esos ejemplos. So hay que mencionar básicamente los mismos ejemplos que da ella. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys 30 seconds to prepare your answer. Todos listos? Your 30 seconds start now. All right, would anyone like to share their answer? Does anyone feel ready to respond? Oscar, would you like to try?
Yes, teacher. I could
right.
say that Egypt was a country that
Espera,
before.
just 1 second before we begin. Te voy a poner tus 60 segundos, ¿ok? Con cronómetro. So, ahora sí, your 60 seconds to speak start now.
Okay. In the audio, they explain how the climate change affect on culture. It gives one example. It is Egypt. Egypt was a country that before had a field full of prosperity and abundance, but then it changed. The climate change affect its natural environment, causing the culture to also change toward a desert scene. That's why Egypt, actually Egypt has these two different scenarios. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Oscar. te faltaron unos 6 seconds more or less, but en cuanto a tiempo, it's still a good response. How do you feel with your answer?
I think that I didn't get some point, but the whole idea, I could say that I got it.
All right. Was there anything in your points? ¿Tenías algo en tus apuntes en tu preparación de ideas que no lograste decir ahora?
No, that was all.
All right. Yes, I do feel that en cuanto a manejo de tiempo, as always, in these cases, when you have information, cuando tienes, ¿no? Un audio, algo que te hacen escuchar o leer, you have to give the context. So you have to introduce the topic. Oh, the lecture says that, da, 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 the text says that, da, da, da. So eso, you gave us the information, I think in the right amount of time. What I feel was that it's a little, falta un cacho de información, ¿no? Falta exactamente responder cómo afecta la cultura. I think those examples, she mentions that people migrated. So when Egypt became a desert, people migrated to escape the desert climate. That's one thing she mentions. I think she also mentions a little bit on kind of like agriculture. So esas cositas que responden más la pregunta. You have to really go for the question. No, busca palabras clave en la pregunta misma que te van a ayudar a responder. So eso, but the first 2 points, en cuanto a la introducción y el primer punto, I think were very clearly explained. So eso, thank you, Oscar.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
All right, we're gonna do one more answer for this question. Would anyone else like to share their answer? No sé quiénes han estado para escucharlo. Creo que algunos han entrado después. Maybe no han escuchado el audio. So I don't know who did manage to listen and who would like to share. Rosario, you were here, right? Has logrado escuchar.
Yes, teacher, I can do it.
All right. So te pongo tus 60 segundos. All right. So your 60 seconds to speak start now.
Okay. The lecture explained the cultural impacts climate change, which is the variation in weather patterns and the transformation of the environment, because some big cultural places has to change. And for example, in the listening, they talk about Sahara Desert, that at first it was a place habitable, and then people had to migrate to survive, and explains how the culture had to adapt to new climate change. And that's all I have.
All right. Y justo a tiempo.
Okay.
Okay, how do you feel with your answer? Do you feel you gave all the information?
Not really. I think it was a little confusing.
Mm-hmm. The lecture, I think, especially información de la lecture.
Yeah, but I feel that it didn't have a structure. I don't know.
Yes, more or less. En otras preguntas vamos a ver that the structure is very, very clear. Like they give you no argumento 1, 2, 3 en el reading y argumento 1, 2, 3 in the lecture. So it's very easy to structure it. But in this case, no, the lecture doesn't really have, a clear structure of punto A, B, C. So it's a little hard to keep track of this one. In general, como les digo, estas que son un poco más lenguaje académico, así, they tend to be a little more difficult, a little harder to follow. But I do feel all the information was there. You got prepositions, guys. Always take care of your prepositions. I think at some point you said directly they talked, bueno, hubiera sido of climate change, ¿no? Revisen siempre que tengan sus preposiciones bien. Looking at keywords always helps, no? Like you mentioned the same words that were mentioned in the text, you rephrase them into your answer, ¿no? Entonces siempre les va a dar que decir que se agarran de palabras clave. Como en este caso tienen el texto del lecture, igual es bueno para responder con palabras clave. And if you guys ever get stuck on a word, like you're giving your answer and you forget a word, y están como que, ¿qué era esta palabra? It's better to, por eso igual, otra cosa que pueden hacer es armarse de sinónimos. Look for synonyms on Google and have esa lista en su cabeza ready for whenever you're not sure of a word. And in the worst of cases, que de verdad no se les viene la palabra a la cabeza, try to give the meaning. So for example, if you're saying, I don't know. So the lecture talks about, let's say the word is environmental conservation, conservación medioambiental. But you forget the word conservation. So you're like environmental, keeping the habitat in good conditions. No está exactamente la palabra, pero la has salvado dando el significado of what you wanted to say, para no atascarte. So, eso guys. Thank you, Rosario. Ok. Vamos a seguir con el siguiente. All right, same thing. In this case, we're going to talk about business strategies. So same thing. You have to read the passage. You have 45 seconds to read the passage. Starting now. All right. Anything that wasn't clear from the reading? Maybe any words or any part that... Digan ahora, guys. Dime.
Yes, I don't understand what's the meaning of principlet. Principal? No.
Where exactly?
It's the title.
Principled negotiation.
Uh-huh.
Kind of like it's based on mutual principles. And I don't know if there's an exact translation in Spanish, pero que está basado en principios.
Yeah.
So that.
Okay, thank you.
Eso. Anything else? Because ya visto, guys, this es un poco más difícil de seguir, so it's better if you have all your doubts cleared before we move on. Yeah, so we're going to listen to the lecture now. Same thing, siempre tengan su papelito para tomar apuntes. And here we go.
Now, listen to a lecture on this topic in a business class.
You can see the effects of principled negotiation right at this university, actually. We have a private company running our cafeteria, right? The university pays the company to buy food, hire employees, and serve meals to the students. When they drafted the contract outlining the their expectations, the university and the food service company had to think about their future together and how they could keep students happy. Only if the students were satisfied would the relationship be able to continue smoothly. That was the common goal. So, at the company's request, the university agreed to fund training the cafeteria workers, precisely because they saw that training as being in the best interest of the students, even if the direct benefit was for the food service employees. And it was coming out of the university's pocket. And at the same time, the food service provider agreed to buy and serve only organic foods, ingredients that cost more, but are healthier for student diners. If the food service had refused to buy those higher quality ingredients, it's more likely that students would have passed on meal plans, or worse, requested the university find a different service. Obviously, the company'd want to avoid that. In the long run, these kinds of decisions were in line with everybody's goals, especially you, the students.
Using the example of the university cafeteria, explain what is meant by principled negotiation.
Okay, so in this case, they're asking us for the meaning of this concept that they gave, right? They gave the concept in the text, and here they give the example of how it applies in the university. Before we answer, ¿hay algo que no haya quedado claro? Anything? All right. So, ahí tienen la pregunta de nuevo. Using the example of the university cafeteria, explain what is meant by principled negotiation. You guys have 30 seconds to prepare, starting now. All right. Who would like to share their answer? Alguien que lo tenga listo. Josh, would you like to share?
Yes, yeah.
Dale. All right, so your 60 seconds start now.
According to the reading passage, principled negotiation is when the different negotiators do not function as competing teams, but rather as partners toward a common objective. In the lecture, the professor further illustrates this concept by providing the example of the private company running the cafeteria inside the university. Both businesses have to think how to keep the students happy. For this objective, the university agrees to pay for training, and the food service agrees to serve organic ingredients. In order to keep the students happy, what is the main goal of both businesses?
All right, thank you, Josh. You have 5 seconds left, pero 5 segundos ahorita, and ahora sí. All right, thank you, Josh. How do you feel with your answer?
Well, I think I said everything I wanted to say, but I think I was nervous and I talked a little bit faster.
No, actually, I think timing was perfect, and I didn't notice you were nervous at any point. I think actually the speed at which you spoke now compared to last class is ideal, no? It's fluid, it's confident. So I think this speed, buena velocidad de hablar. In general, I think really, really good answer. The vocabulary is amazing. Igual como les digo, chicos, vocabulary makes all the difference. Like in this answer, it really constructs toda la respuesta. Reporting verbs as well, you know, states that, claims that, todos esos, clave de la vida. And good concept retention overall, como que súper bien claros todos los conceptos que estaban ahí. So if you guys are able to retain that information, the clearer you retain that, the better. So overall, respuesta genial. Muchas gracias, Josh. Thank you.
Thanks, Drea.
All right. One more for this one. Anyone else who would like to give their answer? Irina, would you like to try?
Yes, teacher.
All right.
I'm not sure, but I will try.
All right. Dale. No, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Your 60 seconds start now.
Okay. According to the reading passage, principled negotiation is when different negotiators do not function as competing teams, and these negotiators are working together looking for the same objective. In the lecture, the professor further illustrates this concept by providing the example of a university that works with a private company like a coffee shop. So they work together, like this coffee shop sells meal to the students, and at the same time they are like giving the best treat to the students. The university gives like a train to the personnel of the coffee shop, and so that is like a win-win. I don't know how to say this, and that is how does the professor explain this.
All right. Thank you, Rina. How do you feel with your answer?
I was nervous. I don't know how to say at the end un ganar, ganar. Lo dije literalmente y no sé si estaba bien.
Yeah, win-win. I think they use the phrase actually, I think in the text, dijeron win-win en algún punto.
Oh.
Pero yeah, the correct phrase is win-win. And con eso igual yo creo que lo has logrado cerrar bastante bien y en el tiempo indicado. So yeah, also, otra cosa que les quería decir, que es algo muy bueno que hagan, take out keywords, o sea, tomen las palabras clave from the text, from the lecture, but try to rephrase it in your own words. Like, no repetir tal cual están las frases, use your own words. And I can really tell, like, when ya has entendido y tú estás reconceptualizando tu respuesta. So also in your answer, Irina, I could tell you were using like your own interpretation of it, your own phrasing, your own opinion. So es igual, ¿no? Se nota que han entendido todo el material y que tienen manejo del lenguaje. So,
Teacher, can I make this example too?
Sure.
Can I? Okay.
Dale. Espérate, pongo un minuto. And okay, go ahead, Oscar. Your 60 seconds starts now.
Okay. According to the passage, principle of negotiation refers to trading with mutual benefits. In the example, there are two parties to reach an agreement on what side of food should be sold. According to the principle, both parties must win to achieve goals together. They must reach an agreement that satisfies both parties.
All right. ¿Algo más? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Nothing more.
All right. Regarding time, you were still 30 seconds. You still had 30 seconds. So I think you could develop your answer a little more. The structure was very clear. I think the concept at the beginning as well, you structured it with your own words, your own opinion. So ahí está. So eso igual es clave, ¿no? When you use your own words to give the answer, se suena mucho mejor. But in this case, I felt you needed more information or mention the examples that they give in the lecture, ¿no? Como que han pagado para entrenar al personal, como que luego la empresa ha comprado ingredientes más caros, más bonitos. So things like that, little examples like that. Pero eso, thank you, Oscar.
Okay, teacher, thank you.
All right, ahora sí. We're gonna move on to the next one. Antes de seguir con el siguiente, ¿qué tal les parecen estos en comparación a los que hemos visto el miércoles? ¿Están más difíciles, más complicados? ¿Cómo lo sienten? ¿Les estresa un cacho los 30 segundos o les parece tiempo suficiente? Any complaints? ¿Alguna queja de la vida about this one? Because I'm going to be honest, guys, this one is kind of hard. People tend to complain about this type of task. Pero no sé if you guys find it more difficult than the others.
Yeah.
Or
I feel like it's the same difficult like the last one.
Mhm.
I think.
Yeah, because the other ones are a little bit more casual. Pero si le hallan el truco a escuchar, I think they're not that difficult either. Algo en particular que les cueste.
Manage of time, time management is very difficult in these questions.
At the time of giving your answer, cuando tienes que hablar, or preparing.
Preparing, like reading and listening, and then preparing in 30 seconds is quite difficult to me, at least.
In these cases, hay otros donde la estructura es un cacho diferente que ya vamos a ver en su momento. But in these cases, you know that both information or both the text and the audio are going to complement each other. So, el truco es, creo que, hacer los apuntes mientras estás leyendo, mientras estás escuchando. So, I don't know, you kind of, como les digo, once you kind of get the hang of it, cuando practicas esto es lo suficiente, aprendas a escuchar ya lo que te dan las respuestas. They give you the answers when they're speaking. Where they put the emphasis, where they put all that, you can hear it. So you kind of ya vas anotando qué cosas son importantes. So when they give you the question, you already know like, okay, tal cosa que nota acá, y ya lo armas a lot faster. So it's a matter of práctica y practicar, entender tus apuntes mientras estás escuchando y leyendo. Because I know the 30 seconds is a little too short para pensar en una respuesta. Pero eso. Any other difficulties you guys have had or que les cuesta con esto? All right. So we're going to go ahead and see the next one. Lo mismo. Tienen 45 segundos para leer este texto. In this case, it's about the development of written language. So it's history and anthropology. Yeah. Your 45 seconds start now. All right. Any words, any ideas that weren't clear from the text? No questions? Okay, so seguimos con el lecture.
Now listen to a lecture in an art history class.
You might be surprised at how close the link between those ancient symbols and our current writing systems actually is. Let me show you some really neat examples from the Roman alphabet to illustrate. Take the letter A. It looks kind of like a triangle with two sticks underneath it, right? Well, those sticks used to actually be horns on a drawing of a bull. A started out as an ancient Egyptian pictograph of a bull's head. This naturally stood for the word bull or a similar creature, but over generations, the eyes and other details on the bull's head disappeared until the head just looked like a triangle and the horns just looked like sticks. Voila. The next example is a bit more distorted, but the letter E has a very similar story. This one started out as a stick figure, an image of a person praying. A line down the middle represented the legs, body, and head, and then two arms extended out on either side. But over time, the symbol was rotated. Rotation like that is pretty common historically, and a part of the image was lost. Now, the three horizontal strokes of the E, those are what's left of the two arms and the head of that person in prayer.
Using examples from the talk, explain how.
Okay, before we listen to the question, anything that wasn't clear? No. Okay, so we're going to listen to the question.
From the talk, explain how pictographs, examples from the talk. Using examples from the talk, explain how pictographs change to become modern writing.
All right. So ahí está la pregunta. Explain how pictographs change to become modern writing using examples. You have 30 seconds to prepare. Starting now. All right. Who would like to share their response for this one? Someone voluntarily? No escojo a alguien contra su voluntad. Rosario, I'm going to pick you contra tu voluntad. All right, ready to give your answer?
Teacher, but it's not complete. I didn't understand so well the listening.
Okay, let's go over the listening. Como tenemos tiempo, let's see what parts you didn't understand. Porque les digo, estos lectures son medio difíciles, entonces es totalmente normal que hayan pedacitos que estén un cacho huecos. What information did you miss? ¿Qué sientes que te falta?
It's like since the beginning, because I tried to understand the words and I tried to do some notes and then I just get lost.
All right.
And then I couldn't continue like understand what the professor was saying.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sometimes when we kind of get lost in the lecture, especially because les digo, guys, I know these are kind of complicated. Especially si no es algo de tu área. Like if they give me one of these lectures, pero sobre biología, like I have no idea what they're saying. Pero cuando pasa eso, cuando sientes que te falta información, you can't go back and listen to it again. So la solución rápida a eso is kind of like use the information you already know de conocimiento general. Si es tu área, like I think, Oscar, if you study sociology, I'm sure this is kind of in your area, so you must have some information about this. Si no tienes la información porque te ha faltado entender partecitas del texto or lecture, fill it in with as much as you can. If you remember parts of the text or parts of the lecture, they mention two letters. Menciona dos letras de ejemplo. La letra A y la letra E, right? So con eso, as long as you have that information, you can kind of charlártela, por así decirlo, kind of, right? If you remember that they gave this information, you can say, oh, the letter A used to represent an image of a bull. Si te acuerdas de este ejemplo que menciona un toro. No, intenta salvarla con cositas que te acuerdes if the information isn't fully clear.
Okay.
Try to do that. So, con eso, you think you can answer? ¿Crees que puedes contestar o sientes que aún te falta información?
I can't. I mean, because I didn't understand really the listening. I
Okay.
didn't understand the concept, so I'm not sure about. Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna pass on this one contigo, Rosario, pero ese truco para el futuro. If you feel you're missing information, try to
Yeah.
get information from wherever you can. Because they don't ask cosas muy complicadas, no? Like they ask about cosas que son de conocimiento general. If they ask about literature, they ask you things about obras de literatura muy conocidas. If they talk about biology, they talk about cosas de biología que like llevas en colegio. So, cosas que puedas ir sacando de conocimiento.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosario. Would someone else like to answer this one? Give it a try. O también ha sentido que les falta info en este.
Yes, teacher. It's the same for me. I just understand like the last example a little bit, but it's the same. I don't understand the conversation.
All right. Let's go back and listen to it one more time. Y vamos a ir pausando y escuchando qué puntos podemos resaltar. Okay? So we're going to go listening and pausing.
Now listen to a lecture in an art history class.
You might be surprised at how close the link between those ancient symbols and our current writing systems actually is. Let me show you some really neat examples from the Roman alphabet to illustrate.
So there she's already mentioning, I'm going to give you guys examples. So hasta ahí no hay nada importante que notar, but she's mentioning that she's going to give us examples.
Take the letter A. It looks
First example.
kind of like a triangle with two sticks underneath it, right? Well, those sticks used to actually be horns on a drawing of a bull. A started out as an ancient Egyptian pictograph of a bull's head. This
Up to there, she's explaining us where the letter A comes from. ¿Hay algo que no esté claro ahí en esa parte? She mentions it's Egyptian, I think. ¿Qué dice? ¿Qué es el origen de esto?
an Egyptian pictograph of
Yes, it's Egyptian, that it used to represent a bull, que parece una cabecita de toro. Hasta ahí todo claro.
a bull's head. This naturally stood for the word bull or a similar creature, but over generations, the eyes and other details on the bull's head disappeared until the head just looked like a triangle and the horns just looked like sticks. Voila.
Here also, like I said, emphasis, when she says voila, it's kind of like she's coming to a conclusion. Right? So ella les va a dar la conclusión de todo el ejemplo de la letra A, which is
The next example is a bit
todo eso, ¿no? Que the letter originally meant bull and then it changed and voila, now it's the letter A. So ahí está un ejemplo. The other example she gives,
look like sticks. Voila.
Ahí está.
The next example is a bit more distorted, but the letter E has a very similar story.
So then she mentions the letter E. She gives a second example. More or less, they're always going to give two examples of this, of something to state their case. So este es su segundo
This
ejemplo.
one started out as a stick figure, an image of a person praying. A line down the middle represented the legs, body, and head, and then two arms extended out on either side.
So here she just kind of explains visually how the letter E used to look. Aquí tal vez se pierden un poco, porque la verdad yo no entiendo, no logro ver visualmente cómo es que era la letra E. Pero she's describing that.
But over time, the symbol was rotated. A rotation like that is pretty common historically, and a part of the image was lost. Now, the three horizontal strokes of the E, those are what's left of the two arms and the head of that person in prayer.
Again, she's mentioning the parts of the letter, no? La letra E, sus tres rayitas. So she mentions those three strokes. And Eso, ahí está, the two examples, letter A, letter E, and what they each represented and how they changed to be the modern letters we have now. Ahora sí, all the information clear? Is there anything that's missing? Ya. Por eso, guys, cuando les digo hay algo que no está claro, tienen que decirme cuando no esté claro, so we can go back and review this, no? Because now we have the chance to listen to it again, verlo con calmita. In the real test, you can't do that. So, eso. Now that we have that information, I'm gonna give you guys 30 more seconds para reformular su respuesta, and we're gonna try again, okay? That your 30 seconds. Start now. Okay, ahora sí. With that information cleared up, who would like to share their response? Irina? Ahora sí, would you like to try?
Yes, teacher. The problem, I think that the problem with me is that I don't know the meaning of some words. Like in the first example, I still don't know what she was saying, and I just have like the second example.
Yeah, por eso, like I said, guys, words like ponte en este que es sobre, because kind of like linguistics, letters, son mi área. Entonces, pictographs, the words like that, I know them. But maybe if it's not your area, no las vas a saber. Por eso les digo, si me dan textos de biología, I really have no idea what they're talking about. Cuando les pasa eso, rellénenlo con el conocimiento del mundo que tengan. If you maybe have the word hieroglyph, que no usa la palabra hieroglyph, pero sabes que egipcios, jeroglíficos, igual, it works.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So, ahora sí, con eso, your 60 seconds start now.
Okay. According to the read passage, pictographs are the earliest known form of writing that consists in very simple pictures of something that represent an idea or a word. In the lecture, the professor further illustrates this concept by providing the example of some letters. First, she talked about the letter A, and the letter A was like a bullhead. Also, she talks about the letter E that was represented like a person that have legs and a body and head, and the arms of this person was extended. And this was examples that the professors explained to show us how were the pictograms.
All right. Thank you. So, how did you feel with your answer, Irina?
I don't feel like good with examples. I didn't understand very well, but I think that I did my best.
All right. En cuanto a la estructura, I feel it was very well structured. The introduction was the right time it needed to be. All the vocabulary was wonderful. The only thing was, I think que la respuesta me hizo faltaba contestar, ¿no? How they changed to become modern writing. So the answer was really en que el momento en el que la cabecita de toro dejó de significar toro, kind of. So you could have mentioned that a little bit, that the bull's head stopped meaning that. And el detallito de la E era que rotaba. No, you can also mention that this meant a person that was praying, blah, 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 blah. But then it rotated and it became the letter E. So, esos detallitos de los ejemplos que he dado. Pero other than that, I think it was a good answer. Okay, so we're gonna leave it there, you guys, porque ya son las 8. So, ¿qué tal? Do you guys have any questions, comments about today's class? No. Okay, so creo que saqué un poquito a la asistencia. And bueno, ya saben, guys. Llenan la encuestita. Y pueden ya salir de la reunión. So have a nice weekend, guys. Also have a nice evening as well. And I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, teacher.
Thanks,
Have a
Bea.
good
Good
night.
night. Good weekend.
Thank you,
Bye.
teacher.
Thank
Bye,
you,
guys.
teacher. Bye.
See you.